What's up, boys? Well, since I didn't stream today, I figured I'd sit out here, make a video, talk to y'all a little bit about Lost Ark, give my first impressions about it. It's been a week now that the game's been out. I think it's about time to make a video and just kind of talk about, you know, good, the bad, and everything else in between. So anyway, Lost Ark obviously came to the West last week, I guess, yeah, today, last week. And it had been out in Korea for years. It had been out in Russia for, I think, also years. People have played it with VPN and just with different clients, etc. here in the US as well. And it was really, really hyped up. Obviously, that was exacerbated by the fact that Amazon had Twitch drops for it, which even further inflated the interest that people had for it, which especially was good for my channel and is good for my channel, as well as a number of other people's. But I think the main thing that I can say that I think most people agree with here is that Lost Ark had a huge splash. It was much bigger, and it's held a lot more players than New World certainly has at this time. Like if you look at New World on release day, and then New World a week after release day, those are two different numbers. With Lost Ark, that hasn't really been the case. It's retained a lot more of its player base, and that's despite number of server issues and people not being able to log in, people being stuck in queue, etc. So even with that many people not being able to play the game, you're still seeing Steam concurrent player counts in the millions. And not really millions, it's above 1 million, which is still insanely good. And I want to talk a little bit about kind of why I think that is, the reason why people like the game, and also just why I like the game. So the fact is that, and I want to make sure I get this out of the way right now, there's always going to be a conversation. This has been happening on my stream about like, I don't know, about every 3 minutes or so for the whole stream. People bring up the fact that Lost Ark is pay to win. This is generally like my opinion on pay to win. I think that if you can ever spend real money and gain an advantage that makes your character more powerful at max level in any way, or to accelerate a farming of that advantage that makes it more powerful, it's pay to win. In that definition, Lost Ark is pay to win. I think it's pay to win. Is it still fun? Yeah, it's still fun, but it's also pay to win. And guess what? You know what else is pay to win in that circumstance? World of Warcraft. So I just want to get that out of the way. I don't really want to talk about that a whole lot, but I know it is a reason for a lot of trepidation. My best advice to anybody who's holding off because of that, or doesn't want to play because of that, make your own best decision. You can play the game for free whenever you want. You can do that or not. It's kind of up to you. But anyway, the one thing I tell you not to do is don't fucking go beyond your finances spending money on a fucking video game. That's some bullshit. So anyway, the fact is that Lost Ark has been hyped up by a lot of people. I've seen videos about it for a long time. Obviously got announced it was coming to the West, published by Amazon over a year ago at this point, and everybody's been really excited about the game, and you can see that with the numbers, the player base, and I think also the game itself has been a breath of fresh air in many regards. I think that the just complete nonchalant nature of the game, it just completely going against a number of the Western you know, mores and social rules, and just doing whatever the fuck it wants, you know. Every female has high heels, of course they do, duh. Everyone has huge ass titties, of course they do, duh. Like, that's just the way the game is. And I think that's a breath of fresh air for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. But again, that's not really a big reason why you play a video game. There's plenty of, you know, bullshit fucking sex simulator games on Steam that nobody plays. So why are people really playing Lost Ark? I think the reason why is because people always are looking for the new MMO. They're always looking for the next big thing. They're looking for that next game that they're going to invest 1,000 or 10,000 hours in, depending on their employment. And the fact is that I'm that same person, right? I'm looking for that next adventure. I'm looking for the new frontier. And I think Lost Ark's in a very particular position because it's a known entity, but at the same time, it's not. Because a lot of people can't really play Lost Ark here in America, but for years we've probably heard at this point that Lost Ark is this incredible game. The developers, Smilegate, have an amazing relationship with their player base over there in Korea, and it's generally well liked and it's well received, and beyond all of that, it's growing. And if you contrast that with games like World of Warcraft or New World, which was also published by Amazon, developed by them as well, you can see a very, very stark contrast. And I think that promise of success and that proven success metric is one of the big reasons why people looked at Lost Ark and thought to themselves, this could actually be a legitimate thing. Because the reason why, and I'll talk about this just for a minute here, is the reason why people care about having an MMO that has a lot of players on it is really simple. Why would you want to farm mounts on a server that nobody else was on in World of Warcraft or any game, right? There are people that care about single-player achievements, but I think that if you look at human psychology, and every regard in life, you can have gold stars, you have expensive sports cars, you have different preferential things at work that are pretty much cosmetic. People love cosmetics, and the reason why they love cosmetics is they get to show them off. And it's one of the main compelling things in life, is to have something that you've earned, that you can show off, that is able to show off that you've earned it. So I think that that's why people want to play an MMO that a lot of people are also playing, is so they can show that stuff off to other people. And also, like, you feel like you're part of something that's like happening. You feel like you're part of something that's happening now, not happened before, not as, you know, like beginning to stop happening, like New World or something like that. You feel like you're on the up and up, and it feels like, you know, things are moving forward and it's a positive thing. So I think that's a big reason why you see so many people that are fixated on the player numbers, and it's not necessarily the number itself. I think it's where the number is going. So, like, for example, if New World had 400,000 concurrent players right now, well, I would consider New World a massive success. Honestly, I really would, especially with it being just a buy-to-play game with no other real microtransactions besides cosmetics. That's a huge success. But the fact is that it's going down, and that's why people, even in the first week of New World, whenever it had, for all intents and purposes, very healthy player numbers, were still worried. And even in the first month, whenever it maintained those healthy player numbers to an extent, they were worried because it was going down. And I think that people see Lost Ark and they see the success it's had in other regions, and they see it going up, and that gives them a certain amount of security whenever they feel like they want to emotionally and mentally invest themselves into a game, because that's one of the big factors that MMOs have, is that there's a lot of emotional investment, there's a lot of time investment into them, and people basically, I mean, they don't want to build a castle on sand. You don't want to play a game that everybody ends up quitting in a month, and you know, you've invested all this time into it and now nobody cares what you've accomplished. I think that would make sense in many regards. So the fact is that Lost Ark has that, I think, is the biggest promise of Lost Ark in general. I just want to kind of let people understand that. And now I want to talk about like the actual individual functions of the game. And I want to preface this by saying I haven't really done any PvP at all, so I can't speak on that. I've heard positive things, but I'll have to experience it myself to really have an actual opinion on it. But other than that, I've leveled through the story. I went through it, you know, pretty slowly, read all the quests, watched all the cinematics, did all the stuff, collected all the Mokoko seeds, and, you know, got the little mounts and did like the completionism stuff in each zone, you know, the typical Asmongold waste your time bullshit. I did all of that, and I have been doing that, and I'm going to, as soon as I finish this video, continue doing that. So, what did I think about different factors? I think that the character creation is good, it's passable. Is it BDO? No, it's not BDO, but does everything have to be BDO? I would say probably not. I think character creation is more than sufficient, it's totally fine. And also, you know, you have like different like outfits you can put your character on. I'd say it's like about as good as Final Fantasy 14, so you could say, somewhere around there. Definitely better than WoW's, like 100%. But, you know, it is that one step above that. Definitely better than New Worlds, of course, like 200% there. So, anyway, I think the main thing that people really enjoy about Lost Ark is the combat. The combat is the main factor that I think attracts a lot of people. And not only is it the factor that attracts a lot of people, but it's also the factor that keeps them playing. The way that Lost Ark feels to me is basically like Diablo if Diablo was an MMO. And the reason why I'm using Diablo and not Path of Exile is that, number one, Path of Exile is so diverse that, you know, somebody playing a Righteous Fire Inquisitor is just going to play a completely different, you know, way than somebody playing a, you know, like a Deadeye or something like that, or whatever it is, an Archer, basically, any bow class. So what I'm really trying to say here is that the experience that you have is, to some degree, formulaic. And because it's formulaic, it's better balanced, which has its positives and it has its negatives. There are a lot of ways you can customize your character, a lot of little tiny things like having special cards that give you bonuses, etc. And there are a lot of just little things that you can do to make your character more powerful, but in terms of like truly changing the dynamic in which your character plays, you don't have a whole lot of resources as compared to a game like Path of Exile. but compared to a game like Diablo 3, I would say you probably have as much or more. I would probably say more. So because of that, I think that the game offers really, really strong, like, core gameplay. And you immediately go into the game. It's not like you're using one ability for the first 3 hours. You immediately start getting different abilities, and the game ramp up is very, very fast, which means that you don't start with, as I said, like 2 abilities for the first 10 hours. You get a number of different abilities. You're learning how these abilities combo together. You're, you know, being put into dungeons. There are solo dungeons, and in my opinion, I think the solo dungeons while leveling, that is the best part of leveling. And I just in general think the combat is probably the biggest strength of Lost Ark, because there's a certain visceralness of the Diablo 3 combat that makes it in some ways still compelling. Now, obviously I don't really play Diablo 3 anymore, but if I was going to, that would be one of the main reasons why. And I can feel that same thing in Lost Ark. I think also just, you know, to wrap that up, TLDR, combat is fucking awesome. I really, really like the combat in Lost Ark, and I've been hearing the same thing from almost everyone. So the next thing I want to talk about is the story. Now, the story is, it is a story. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. And there are things that happen in that story, and some of those things are climactic. You could even call it a story. That's about it. It's just, in my opinion, it's about as good as the Diablo story, Diablo 3. It's pulp fiction. You know, it has some interesting characters, Carmine, Father Armin, and I haven't finished all of the little quest lines and everything like that, but as I said, I've played through, you know, at least probably 50 hours, 40 hours of it. I think that, you know, you've pretty much got an idea of what's going on. This is not Heaven's Word, okay? It's not. But it's also not Shadowlands. And that's pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, at this point, we'll fucking take it. The story is passable. It's okay. It can be entertaining. There are really, really cool parts in the story. I love how the story integrates the isometric camera angle, and it rotates it a lot. I feel like there's a lot of people that don't want to play Lost Ark because of the isometric camera angle, and I felt the same way about Diablo 3 because I never played Diablo 2, so it was my first game that I played that was isometric in that regard, and I thought I wouldn't like it, and I started playing it, and after a couple of hours, that's all I wanted to do was play it. So I feel like click to move is definitely a learning curve for a lot of people. For me, I've played Diablo 3, I've played Path of Exile for collectively thousands of hours. So there was really no transition problem there for me. But I would say if you're an MMO player and that's something that's holding you back, try to give the game 5 hours. Give the game 5 hours, see how you feel, and then decide after that. And there's a good feeling, there's a good chance. By the way, at the end of that 5 hours, you say, I didn't like it, I knew I wouldn't like it, fuck you Asmongold, you wasted my time. But hey, at least you tried. And so that's what I would probably say to anybody who's like a little bit more on the fence about the isometric camera angle, is that they rotate it around, and especially in like the siege that they have, this is like maybe like about halfway through the story, the main story leading up to the Chaos Gates, at least to that point, that's where I'm at. That part of the story, like you're changing camera angle all the time, your character is seamlessly integrated not only into cinematics, but in and out of cinematics. It's just incredibly well done. You think about like, what is the best experience that an isometric camera angle can deliver, an isometric game can deliver, and I feel like Lost Ark delivers that experience. It absolutely does. However, I do wish it was free look. But, you know, the next best thing is the best isometric camera that we've ever seen, or at least I've ever seen. So anyway, that's a huge positive to me. And also I think that it allows them to kind of balance and control a lot more things much more tightly than a game like New World or a game like, you know, World of Warcraft, for example, in terms of the way that it's shown on the screen. So there's all these little objectives around in the game, and I think like basically if you're playing, like the experience that I had playing Lost Ark is probably the exact same as somebody's experience playing Path of Exile for the first time today. You accidentally hit a key on your keyboard and you accidentally discover 2,000 hours worth of content that is, let's be honest, a fucking grind. But it is, you know, things that you can do in the game. and it you know, has like a minor effect on your character, and it can, you know, do like a 5% more damage to demons or something like that with the cards, for example. But just overall, you have like all these different systems that build on each other, and because of that, I think that it's very appealing to people in that regard. And also, the mindless grinding and mindless farming, I think, is appealing in its own way. It has gathering that's a lot the same as like games like a RuneScape, right? Isometric camera angle gathering is, you know, it is what it is, right? And you have like all these little different things that you can do as a player, and I think because of that, that's what really gets people engaged with the game, and that's what keeps them playing it, is that the developers are trying to create different ways to play the game, which is a huge reason why I think World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV are so successful, is that whenever you can log on and play Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft completely different than somebody else. Somebody can log on and be a, you know, just for example, a balding mount farmer, or they can log on and be a mythic raider, or they can log on and be a PvPer, or they can log on and be a role player. And those 4 different ways of playing the game are just so radically different that the only thing that they have in common is that they're playing the same game. That's literally it. And I think that Lost Ark tries to emulate that in a pretty good regard. It has a, you know, like a castle system that you can make, like garrisons or player housing that you have a lot of time that you can invest into. And again, like a lot of these things do have mobile game mechanics built into them, so I don't really know like what the longevity for me enjoying these things are going to be. And that's what, you know, I'll probably make a full review video in maybe like a month or 2 months or so, once I've really had a chance to interface with all the systems sufficiently to where I feel confident to talk about them. And, you know, you guys can look forward to that, but that's not going to happen yet. Again, first impressions is it seems passable, but I can easily see that there is a huge mindless grind. And anyway, I think that just overall, Lost Ark was a breath of fresh air for a lot of people who were maybe burned by New World. They'd finished Final Fantasy Endwalker at this point. They're waiting on 9.2 and WoW, and there's just nothing else really going on. This cool, new, quirky Korean MMO comes out with like isometric camera angle. You know, all the females are really hot. It's like, you know what? Let's try it out, see how it's gonna go. And I feel like that's why we see so many people playing the game. The story's okay, the combat's phenomenal, the end game is, again, it's pretty grindy, but one of the good things about the end game, this is something I really miss with WoW, is that in order to get to tier 3, you have to do tier 2. And I like how it builds on each other, and it creates a lot of levels that you have to go through in the end game, rather than you just start at, you know, floor 9, you have to go to floor 10, and 8 through 1 just don't matter at all. So I'm really glad that Lost Ark doesn't really have that problem. Of course, they do have some catch-up mechanisms built into it because it released with tier 3, but overall, I think that the experience for a lot of people is going to be much more, it's going to have much more longevity than something like in World of Warcraft right now, for example, unless you count in farming shards of domination. So anyway, I think that just in general, the game, it's very alt-friendly as well. You can do a lot of things on your alts. You're even encouraged to play your alts, maybe too much, but it's, you know, it depends, right? I mean, it depends on if that's the way you like playing a game or not, and how much you want to min-max. I just play a Berserker. Why would I need to play anything else? However, I meant like a Gun Lancer and a Paladin, but I don't really see myself playing any other classes besides that. But we'll see what happens. Again, we'll see what happens. So anyway, again, the game's had a lot of success in other regions. Obviously, this game does have some pay-to-win mechanics that do give a lot of Western players trepidation, and I respect that, and I share that trepidation as well. And I'll review the game and try to give it the most honest shake as possible whenever I'm able to learn everything about the systems. But right now, I'll tell you guys the truth. For the last month or so, or last week or so, I mean to say, I've logged on to my stream. I've looked forward to it every single fucking day, except for today, because I haven't gotten enough sleep for a few days. I needed to oversleep today. But I did get a chance to, you know, I get to play it all the other days. I've looked forward to it. I've been excited about it. I love the goofiness. I love the quirkiness. I love the combat. And, you know, I think it's just in general a fun game to play. And it's a free-to-play game, too. So if it's something you're interested in, I'd say play it. If it's not, I'd say fuck it. So that's about all I've really got to say. And in general, it's a pleasant surprise. I wouldn't actually even really say surprise. I was expecting it to be good because it already has proven success. But again, Western markets are different. So we'll see how it evolves, and you know, I'll come back to this in a couple of months. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Peace.